Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday lecture. I was hoping to cover a couple of these things in our class on Tuesday, but our guest speaker did such a great job. He really filled up the time, so I didn't get a chance to do this, but that's totally okay. I hope anyway, you really enjoyed listening to Brett Hunter. I know I emailed you about him, but I think he provided us with some really good information that's very practical, and I think you got a sense of what actually happens in when you work in sport marketing or sport promotion. So, I have a couple reminders. Please do not forget that you have a very big assignment due at the end of the semester. So be sure you're communicating with your group members about this assignment. It is well documented in the syllabus. So be sure to be looking at that. And if for some reason you don't have a group member, I know there might have been a couple people gone the day we assigned groups, shoot me an email. And another announcement on November 13th, we will have a Mawson lecture, which is like a lecture series that our sport management program hosts. And a professor from the University of Minnesota will be giving a lecture. If you attend the lecture and send me a selfie, you will get 5 points extra credit. So if you don't feel very good about your test score, consider attending the lecture. So as I mentioned, Tuesday we had Brett Hunter speak to us. And today, Thursday, I'm giving an online lecture. Along with this online lecture, you will have an online assignment due as well as a quiz due. Both of those assignments will only be due on Sunday. Now, the quiz is going to include some information from Brett's talk with us, so you need to keep that in mind when you're taking the quiz. And if you did have an excused absence and you missed something related to Brett's speech or guest lecture, shoot me an email and we'll talk about how you can get those points back, but only if you had an excused absence. So before we dive into this week's topic, next week, as I mentioned, I have to be gone both Tuesday and Thursday, but you are still going to have class. The topic is going to be sponsorship, and I think you will really enjoy both of the guest lectures. The first one is from Austin Bogina, and Austin is a first-year PhD student. When he talks, please, when both of the speakers talk, no computers or cell phones, just be respectful to our guest speaker. They'll surely let me know how the class behaves, so please do your best in that sense. And both days there will be an attendance sheet, which will count as your ICA for those days. And then you will have a quiz due Sunday of next week as well, and this quiz directly relates to our guest speakers. So if you attend and you pay attention and you take notes, you should be good to go for the quiz. Again, I know this is a lot of confusing information with the schedule being all over the place. Feel free to shoot me an email and if you're confused at all. So moving on to our lecture, I think I only have about 15 slides, so this shouldn't take too long. I'll try to move pretty quickly because I know these aren't super fun to listen to. We're talking about promotion and paid media in sport. So if you've been paying attention in class, you know that promotion is one of the 5 P's of sport marketing, the marketing mix. And within promotion and paid media, it has been important in sport based on its historical context and how its relationship has evolved within the context of sports sponsorship and media. So as these things of sports sponsorship and media have developed, we've seen this idea of promotion really develop in sport. We're going to talk a little bit about elements of promotion and the pros and cons, some promotional strategies, as well as promotional campaigns. As you see the image there of LeBron with the statement, "We are all witnesses," that is a perfect example of a promotion in sport. We see the Nike swoosh there. Certainly marketing or promoting a certain brand that LeBron is obviously sponsored by. So, what is promotion? What does that even mean? Well, it's an activity designed to stimulate interest in, awareness of, and purchase of a product. So it's kind of an action. It leads to hopefully the purchasing or engaging with a product. It's also a method that is used to convey information about the place, price, and product. It's very critical when we're positioning the product in the mind of the consumer. Obviously, the different kind of promotions we're going to discuss are really important in how the product is positioned for consumers. And there are often short-term objectives associated with promotion. So what does that mean? When we run a promotion for an event, we're focusing on a sales increase or an impulse buy or raising customer traffic and presenting and reinforcing the image. Most of the time, promotions are based on short-term objectives. Once in a while, you will see a company create a promotion that's much more long-term or, something over time like I think Nike actually is a great example. We see them kind of maybe altering the image or the person that they are promoting, but the message that they're promoting has really been consistent over the last couple of years. And that is in terms of social equality, that women can be very great in sport as well. And I think you can see that in some of the more recent advertisements. And then also promotions provide info about a product or service, which hopefully enhances customer satisfaction. So what are the goals of promotion? Well, this little model here is very helpful to remember in case this would be a test question on your final exam. It's the AIDA model or IDA model, however you want to refer to it. So when you're creating a promotion, you want to increase awareness, attract interest, arouse desire, and initiate action. So those are the 4 elements that you really want to focus on when you're creating a promotion. Obviously, let's use the typical Nike, the Nike commercial with Serena Williams, where she says, I've got a picture of it coming up here. So trying to increase awareness of women in sport. Trying to attract interest in the sport of women's tennis. Trying to arouse desire in terms of maybe wanting to become as great as she is or wanting to become a great female athlete, and ultimately initiating action, wanting to go out and buy a tennis racket and participate. And since it is a Nike commercial, she always has a Nike advertisement. She has her Nike tennis outfit on. So you might say, oh, Serena wears that. I want to be as good as Serena. I need to buy a Nike outfit, right? That's kind of the process of a promotion. So we have several different types of promotion. We have advertising, which is paid, and it's non-personal. It's not directed to one person individually or an individual person, and it's sponsored. It's a message conveyed through the media, and we'll get more in depth on this in a little bit. We have personal selling, a face-to-face presentation where you can really persuade the customer. Now, when I think of this, mostly for me, it's easiest to remember to think like when people come door to door and try to sell you something at your house, right? They're trying to persuade you to buy something. We have publicity. Now, this is typically not paid for, but publicity, let's say, a typical press conference or an interview. That's a type of promotion. And then, of course, a sales promotion. We see this a lot in sport. We have essentially like, come to this game because we're giving you 15% off, or all students get in for $5, right? We see that sales promotion with a sense of a coupon involved or a savings. So as we move through these, again, I'm going to try to go quickly just to not bore you, since I'm not in front of you and we can't just participate as a big group. But as I mentioned earlier, advertising needs to create awareness, communicate info about attributes and benefits, and kind of develop, change, or enhance an image. And you want to associate the brand or product with emotions and precipitate behavior. So, again, that is straight textbook stuff, but I want you to look at the image here. This is an example of an image advertisement, right? We see they're advertising a certain event that they have, KU Night at the Royal Stadium. So you're creating awareness. They probably had to pay to put this ad out wherever they put it out. And you're really trying to enhance that image of the Royals. Now, when we're talking about about advertising, there's this communication system that we really need to understand, because it's not simply me putting out an advertisement and hoping you see it. We have to consider these different factors, including the source, the message, the channel, the receiver, and the destination. So the source is the originator of the message. So in that example of the ad here, the source is obviously the Kansas City Royals. Now, what is their message? They're trying to promote their event. They're trying to say, come out to our game. And what type of channel are they using? Well, that looks like it is an image that was maybe posted on social media or in a newspaper. And who is their receiver? Who is their target market for that message? Well, if we go back, it's KU Night. So obviously their receiver is people who are affiliated with KU. Now here's the interesting part, the destination. This is where the message ends up, and it's often beyond the receiver. So we're targeting the KU population with this message, right? That's our receiver. However, because of the spread of word of mouth, we might have the message end up with parents of KU students. They might want to come with their college student to experience the game. It might end up with a student's brother or sister who goes to a different school. So as you can see, based on word of mouth, the destination is different than the receiver. So here is kind of a visual for you. You see the source and the message, and then the receiver audience. However, because of word of mouth, the message is often moved even further onto the destination. So this is an important chart for you to know. It's likely going to be incorporated with a test question. So if you're actually listening to this, I'm giving you some hints. So we're still on advertising here, but what types of advertising are there in sport? Well, there's signage. Yes. So we're going to go through each one, but signage, endorsements, print media, electronic media, and then billboards and blimps and buses. So signage, here's a perfect example of signage. You see all these signs at a baseball stadium advertising a different product. So these can be electronic or printed. Oftentimes you see the logo associated with the the company. And typically advertising is more visible in terms of signage is more visible in terms of advertising, which only makes sense. It can be very important in sponsorship, or it can be unimportant. And that's something that if you were there for Brett Hunter's speech, he kind of talked about how important is it to these companies to have their logo associated with an event that SMA is putting on. And how do we measure how well signage works? It's often measured in terms of impressions. How many impressions did it make? So if a baseball stadium seats 3,000 people and they're sold out for a game, theoretically, they made 3,000 impressions in that one game. So then we have endorsements. Typically, endorsements are associated with a well-known celebrity athlete who uses their fame to enhance or sell an image of a company or a product or a brand. Here in this GIF, you see Joel Embiid advertising for Hulu, right? He's probably getting paid lots of money by Hulu to take these photos and create kind of a campaign for Hulu. One of the most important parts of endorsements is it needs to be a good fit. If you have an athlete who is maybe charged with child abuse, and you have them advertising a child toy or a product, clearly that is not a good fit, right? So in endorsement, it's very important to have a good fit. And ultimately, is the celebrity conveying the appropriate message? Is the celebrity, that just goes right back into good fit. Is the message that's being sent out to the public, is that something that is appropriate based on the athlete, based on the person who's involved? So, for instance, it would make zero sense to have a very famous classical music composer advertise for an NBA game, right? Or an NBA team, because those things really have nothing in common. That's a really bad example, but it's late at night and I'm trying my best here. So, all right. So, print media. This is the advertisement I was talking about earlier. With print media, now this might not be the best example. Well, this photo is a good example because it was in a magazine, but this was also a like a video ad. So keep that in mind that what we're talking about right now is the image that was in the magazine. With print media, there's a high degree of control over content, right? You control exactly what they're going to see. Typically inexpensive compared to other aspects. Not always, but relatively inexpensive. That means that in relation to signage and those things, it's relatively inexpensive. It can be easily ignored by the audience. This is an example from a magazine. When I'm reading a magazine, which we talked about, many of us don't do anymore. But when I'm reading a magazine, typically I'm flipping through to get to an article I want to read, right? So am I really going to pay attention to an ad in a magazine? Same with newspapers, right? We're probably kind of frequently flipping through to get to what we want to read. Or think online when you're reading a newspaper. You're quickly trying to, you're not looking at all the images around it, you're trying to read what's there. Print media can take place in a lot of different ways. Probably the ones that are most easily ignored by the audience are like schedule cards or items that you buy for a totally different purpose. Like you have a very serious purpose for buying something, and it's not to look at the ads or the ads. And then we have electronic media. So here we're looking at commercials, TV commercials, radio, and so forth. With electronic media, there is greater flexibility in attracting consumer attention than print media, because when you're watching a TV show and there's a commercial, it's a little harder to get away from it than when you're flipping through a magazine and you're trying to get to what you want to get to, if that makes sense. There are many types, as I mentioned earlier. With radio, we have 3 different types. We have traditional radio, which is where you turn on your favorite radio station and you just listen to whatever's on. We have streaming, which is where you maybe go to your Pandora and you stream your favorite station. And then, of course, there are podcasts. Now, I've told you guys before, every morning I listen to a podcast that's sports related that every probably 10 minutes there's an ad that comes in. And by now I have those ads all memorized. I'm very familiar with the product just because I listen to that every 3 times a week, right? We have our television ads, and of course this is if you look to the left here, if you look at the chart, we see the Super Bowl, the pricing for a 30-second message during these different sporting events. As you can see for the Super Bowl, now this is in 2011, so obviously these prices are much higher. But for a 30-second commercial, $3 million at the Super Bowl. So as you can see, obviously, with the amount of people watching or the amount of people paying attention to live sport broadcast, the price goes up. And there are many types of commercial structures with TV. There are, obviously, I'm not going to go through each one, but when you think of all the commercials you've watched or all the different commercials that exist, we might see them telling a story, offering a solution to a problem. It might be satire, it might be funny. It might be suspenseful. It might be a demonstration. So as you can see, there's all these different types of commercial structures. And this is important for our ICA when we get there. And then we have sales promotions. Now, sales promotions can be in the form of a price discount or simply non-price related. So the example here that I have is a limited time offer, $10 off purchase with Adidas from a website, right? So in sport, we see sales promotions probably, it's probably the one that we as consumers of sport are most aware of. And I think the perfect example is for a Chiefs game, maybe they have or I guess we'll go back to the Royals example. They have a KU night. So if they have a KU night, they might say, hey, KU students can get in for $15. You just have to show your ID, your student ID. Now, when we're doing this, it's important, when the Royals are doing something like this, very important that they're not alienating their season ticket holders. So what does this mean? It means that the season ticket holders, when they see that KU students are getting in for a really low price, it's important that this isn't happening every single game for a different population, because at a certain point they're going to be like, why am I buying a season ticket if all these other people are getting in for so cheap? Oftentimes when there's a value added promotion, again, something Brett Hunter talked about, when we're doing a $10 off purchase of $100 or more, for instance, from this coupon, typically a sponsor is covering that cost. So if we're talking about KU Night at the Royals, all of a sudden, instead of a $40 ticket, KU students are getting in for $15. That discrepancy in price is typically covered by a sponsor. Again, price discounts are typically short-term fixes to try to increase attendance for one game. And it can have unintended consequences, right? You might increase attendance for one game, but it's not going to look good when the only reason the attendance was increased was because of that one sponsorship you had. When you're doing this kind of thing, you need to understand the promotion's effect on concession and merchandise sales. So maybe you're all of a sudden the Royals have an extra 5,000 people there. They need to understand that obviously concession and merchandise sales are probably going to go up, and that's simply because of that promotion. And you need to really take into consideration the scheduling and timing of the promotion. Right? It would make no sense for the Royals to do this on a day of a KU football game. Or in Nebraska, I'm going to use a Nebraska example. It would make no sense for the volleyball team to have a promotion on the night of a home Husker football game if their games are at the same time, right? Because everyone's going to go to the football game because people are crazy fans in Nebraska. So when we're talking about promotional components, what is your promotion? What can it include? Well, there's lots of different ones, right? We can have a theme night. Maybe it's Game of Thrones night at the NBA game. Maybe you can sample a product while you're there. In sport, typically, I don't think we see a ton of product sampling. Maybe it's an open house. Maybe you have a time when you're the people who are attending can get in 10 minutes early and take a tour of the men's basketball locker room or something. As we just talked about, coupons, discount codes, vouchers. Maybe it's a contest or a sweepstakes. If you attend, you'll get a chance to sign up to win this $50,000 four-wheeler. And then oftentimes we see these premiums and giveaways. So here's just an example. The Suns had kind of an advertisement with their theme nights and giveaways. If you look at this, one night they had a bobblehead. One night they had kind of like a thermos tumbler type thing or a drink mixer. I don't really, yeah. So lots of great ideas you can go with this. So that leads us into our ICA. I want you to create a promotion for a team. And this is going to be a one-page thing, so you do need to address several aspects of this lecture. And you can choose. You can do an advertisement, and if you're going to do an advertisement, you need to tell me, is it a print advertisement? Is it a commercial? you need to kind of be very specific with that. If you choose to do a theme night, you need to tell me about that. If you're doing a giveaway, tell me more about that. So again, use the lecture to kind of help you with that. So in order to do this, you need to identify a team and an event, and I want you to be creative, and then explain the promotion in detail. Use images to help explain. If it's a theme night, if it's a giveaway, if you're giving away bobbleheads, then show me what a bobblehead looks like and pretend I have no idea. You can't use this example, no bobblehead giveaways, because we talked about it quite a bit today. And also no KU Royals student night, because we talked about that a lot too. And then finally, to help you kind of reach that 1-page minimum, I want you to explain how it meets those 4 goals of sport promotion that we talked about earlier in the ADA model. So please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. And I look forward to seeing you guys in about a week and a half.